You are watching the press preview, a first look at what's on the front pages as they arrive. In the next half hour, we'll see what's making the headlines with the journalist and author Christina Patterson and the editor of the Jewish Chronicle, Wallis. So let's see what's on some of those front pages for you now. I'll be bolder than Blair on public reform. The Observer quotes Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer for its headline. The Sunday Express is focused on the coronation with the headline, King's solemn vow to serve us all. Also focused on the coronation, the Mail on Sunday front cover reads, we are all invited to swear our allegiance to the King. While the Sunday Mirror focuses on the cost to taxpayers with their coronation front story, with the headline, £150 million on security hikes up the coronation bill. And the Sun turns to the movements of Prince Harry, saying he only plans a whistle-stop visit during the coronation weekend. Their headline, Harry in a hurry. The front of the Sunday Telegraph quotes Florida Governor Ron DeSantis in their headline, which reads, I support Badenoch in her war on wokery. The Star on Sunday has an exclusive on the cancer battle fought by comedian Bobby Davro's fiancée. And a reminder that by scanning the QR code you'll see on screen during the programme, you can check out the front pages of tomorrow's newspapers while you watch us. And we are joined tonight by the journalist and author Christina Patterson and the editor of the Jewish Chronicle, Wallis. Welcome to you both. Well, let's start with the Sunday Express and the coronation, just a few days now before the actual ceremony, and the King's solemn vow to serve us all. This is in breaking with tradition, Christina.
Yes, I mean, I think it's part of the King's desire to be very kind of inclusive with this ceremony. There are going to be representatives from all faiths. I think for the first time ever, the Archbishop of Canterbury is going to refer to all faiths in the ceremony. It's going to be I think we've seen from some of the guests who are invited to take part in the ceremony that it's going to be much, much more multi-faith and multiracial than previous coronations. I think, I must say that, I mean, the idea is that formerly, apparently, the aristocracy vowed their allegiance to the new monarch. And I can understand why that would seem rather anachronistic and weird today, and therefore that it has been opened up to anyone sitting on a sofa anywhere who wants to vow their allegiance to the monarch. I have to say, it feels like rather a strange idea to me. I can't quite imagine sitting there, you know, eating a packet of Doritos and swearing allegiance to King Charles. It does all feel a bit medieval. And I think that's my feeling about the whole thing. I think King Charles is going to be a very good king. I think that he cares about the right things. He was way ahead of his time on the environment, on multiculturalism, on support for inner city communities and inner city youngsters. I think in many ways he's a good thing, but it is quite a weird thing to have a monarch who is, even if they are just sort of technically a head of state, the fact that this is such a kind of solemn ceremony where he gets anointed with oil and, you know, there is an oath of allegiance, it does seem a bit strange to me, I have to admit.
Jake, what are your views? Will you be pledging that oath of allegiance sitting at home on the sofa?
Certainly, I think that, I mean, this week, lots more details are being released slowly but surely about the innovations that the coronation is going to see this time round. And as Christina said, there are two main areas in which those innovations are taking place. One is in terms of opening the ceremony up to being more inclusive of different faiths and women as well. There are some women clergy who are playing prominent roles in a way that hasn't happened before. And also it's including other languages like Gaelic, Welsh, Scottish Gaelic and Irish Gaelic and Welsh as well. So the King's obviously making a big effort to include everybody in the country in the coronation in some way. But the other innovation is to take the focus a little bit more away from the aristocracy, as Christina mentioned, and place it more towards the common people in the country, if you like. And the main way in which this is happening is that the hereditary peers who formerly went first to pledge allegiance to the king and then touched the crown and kissed his right cheek are now not playing that role. And instead, this great pledge of allegiance is taking place around the country and around the world, virtually, I suppose, if you like, people in their sitting rooms speaking to the screen. And this is an extension of the innovation that he announced a couple of weeks ago, that the hereditary peers are not going to be wearing their robes, which is a 500-year-old tradition which he's getting rid of. And I think the sense is that during the cost of living crisis, there's a wish to hold back the lavishness in some way of the coronation. And personally, I feel a little bit less comfortable with that idea. I feel like, it's a bit late to hold back on the lavishness of the coronation because it's very lavish. That's the whole point of it. I don't think that will make much difference. And it feels a bit of a shame to me to lose the tradition of the robes and the ceremony that have been around for so many centuries.
Christina, what do you think on that point? Because it isn't as lavish as it could have been, because the king has wanted a pared-down service. But there are, one of the papers is actually looking at the cost. That's the Mirror, 150 million on coronation security, and their estimates that it could exceed that cost.
Yeah, I think it would take a real grouch to sit around and moan about the cost of a coronation when there hasn't been one for 70 years, or more than 70 years. I think, look, coronations are expensive, but they don't happen very often. If we had an enormous ceremony every time we change prime ministers in this country, we've been, racking through them at a rate of knots. So, I don't begrudge anything spent on this coronation in terms of global focus and media coverage and tourism. Actually, it will, I'm sure, earn whatever is spent. It will give us a return on investment, as the business people like to say. I don't share Jake's worry about the robes. I really don't. I think the peerage is a really outdated concept, and I absolutely support King Charles, who has kind of, through no desire of his own, ended up as in this peculiar position of being king of a country who, I think probably in lots of ways doesn't really believe in an aristocracy. And he's doing his best to make this peculiar institution as modern as it can be in the circumstances. And I wish him the very, very best of luck with it.
The Mirror saying that the total spend is set to reach 250 million. And there are those, Jake, who say in the midst of a cost of living crisis when people are struggling to pay for food, to eat, and during the colder months to heat their homes, that this is quite vulgar.
Yeah, I can relate to that. And I think that everybody, almost everybody in the country is feeling the pinch, and has been over the last year, increasingly so. And the timing isn't brilliant to have such a big and lavish display of wealth and prestige and hierarchy. But at the same time, the coronation would give everybody a lift. As Christina mentioned, it doesn't happen very often, and it would be a shame, I think, to do it in a sort of half-hearted way. I feel like if it's happening, it's happening. You've got to go big or go home with it. And I think on the whole, the British public will very much get behind it. We need these focuses in our national life of togetherness and identity and optimism. And the King has been exemplary, really, so far in reaching out to people, in including all faiths and all people in the embrace of the coronation. And I think he's setting a very good precedent and a very good example. And I think it will do wonders overall for our public mood, although it is a slightly eye-watering bill at the end of it.
Yes, Christina, the Mail talking about the pledge to allegiance that's being asked of all of us, the homage of the people, just one of the significant updates to the ancient ritual, and see other religious faiths as well as the Church of England. And that's something that we know is close to the King's heart. When he was Prince Charles, he wanted to be defender of the faiths, plural, and that was something that he was very keen to do. And this coronation does seem to embrace other faiths. We'll have Rishi Sunak reading from the Bible.
Absolutely. And I mean, this is not, nobody could accuse King Charles of wokery because he has taken this position very, very strongly for decades. And, his work with the Prince's Trust, for example, which was, way ahead of so many charities in giving opportunities for inner city youngsters and of many backgrounds, cultures, and faiths. And I do think, I mean, one of the unfortunately for those of us who don't support Brexit, which is now the majority of the British population, I think according to recent polls, more than 60% of people think Brexit was a mistake. It doesn't seem like these don't seem like our glory days, but I do think that in King Charles, I think he is someone who's been very, very forward thinking. And I think one thing we can be relatively proud of in the UK is that, relatively speaking, we are a successful multicultural, multiracial country. Obviously there is enormous racism in every country, and there is not equality of opportunity. And I'm sure that nobody would say this is any kind of a utopia, but so clearly isn't. But I do think that compared to many world cities, we are, and London, for example, is doing better than most, and compared to many countries, we do better than most on this front. And I think to have a monarch who is actively seen, and as he has done all his life, to support different perspectives, different faiths, different cultures, I think that is a real asset to the United Kingdom.
And Jake, do you think the Mail's right in its prediction that this will become known as the people's coronation?
It might do. I mean, certainly this is a big step. There's a big innovation. I mean, by comparison to the last coronation, the technology didn't exist to allow everybody to get involved simultaneously in this way. And so it is a big step. And I do hope that it will bring people together and that people will get involved, and it will ignite that sense of patriotism and national togetherness, which has been so damaged in recent years. And as Christina was saying, it's very welcome that the King is including all faiths in the coronation. As editor of the Jewish Chronicle, obviously I welcome that, but I also welcome the fact that the Archbishop of Canterbury did say that the ceremony must have a Christian centre of gravity, or words to that effect. This is a Christian country, and the coronation must reflect that sense and that character. And it's the position of other faiths to be included, but to respect that overarching culture. And I think that on the whole, it will do that, and it will be very harmonious and good-tempered, and will bring people together, which is really all we can hope for.
Yes, and one of those people travelling for the coronation is Prince Harry, but the Sun's saying that it's just going to be a whistle-stop visit. Christina?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody is surprised by that. I think that it was always bound to be short, and it is his son's birthday. I think either that day or the next day. So I mean, he has an excellent excuse for dashing back, but I can't imagine he was very inclined to hang around for a long time anyway. The most important thing is that he's coming after all the heartbreak that has been caused in the last couple of years with the memoir and the Oprah Winfrey interview and all kinds of other things. I think it's really important that Harry will be there supporting his father at his coronation, and I hope that that can begin to heal some of the rifts that have been caused in the family.